Thank you for joining us for today's presentation, Know Your Spend. I would like to begin with an introduction of our speakers, Eric Zoltmulder, Product Marketing Director at SciQuest, and Cindy Barlow, VP of Sales and Marketing at SpendRadar. Cindy is Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing and is responsible for building and maintaining SpendRadar's global presence in the marketplace. Cindy brings 20 years of experience in sales and sales management in both large and small enterprises and emerging technologies. As Product Marketing Director with SciQuest, Eric was responsible for collaborating with SciQuest customers to identify and develop solutions that focus on spend analysis, supplier management, and sourcing. Both Cindy and Eric are recognized by Supply and Demand Chain Executive Magazine as a pros to know, as experts in supply chain management. Welcome, Cindy and Eric.
Thank you, Julie. We're going to take today to introduce you to both SciQuest and SpendRadar, mostly focus, of course, on SpendRadar. But we want to make sure that people that are on the phone that have not met SciQuest before, you have sort of an understanding of where SciQuest fits in the procurement continuum, and kind of how the relationship between SciQuest and SpendRadar came about. Then we'll talk about SpendRadar in particular, and Cindy will take over there, and we will end the presentation with a demonstration of the tool set that SpendRadar supports. And like Julie said, at the end of the presentation, there's a time for question and answer, so use the panel, and we'll be glad to answer all the questions. So let's start with talking a little bit about SciQuest. SciQuest is a leading provider of modular, on-demand source-to-settle solutions. And it is modular in the sense that this is a suite with modules you can buy one at a time, or you can buy them in a particular configuration depending on your need. The history of SciQuest is a fairly long one. We were founded in the late 90s as part of the dot-com boom and had a colorful history focusing on life sciences in the past. But the dot-com boom was also a bust for SciQuest, and we had to reinvent ourselves as a business in the early 2000s and focused on procurement and the procurement marketplace, particularly the capability around e-procurement to really support the catalog management side of e-procurement. That has grown over time to be a really complete source-to-settle suite. And as you see on the timeline that we have on the slide, in 2010 we did our IPO, and after the IPO we started really investing in focusing from our sort of our downstream procurement suite, which was really the marketplace. It had the accounts payable, and it had the e-procurement, the requisitioning, and the order delivery side. Much more on the upstream procurement suite. So as we progressed in 2011, we acquired AECsoft, which was the leading provider of supplier information management solutions and sourcing technology at that point in time. This year, we've been very, very busy on the acquisition path, and we've partnered with Upside, and now we are adding spend analytics and spend analysis to the suite with SpendRadar. We are hosted, our headquarters is in Cary, North Carolina. Worldwide, we have now over 450 employees, which is a significant larger group of people than we were about a year and a half ago. And we are approaching the 450 customers right now. We have, of course, our mandatory slide with all the badges of all the customers that we have, and we now have to adjust that yet again with the acquisition of SpendRadar. But this is very much a 50-50 set of badges around both private and public sector customers. If you look at who is part of our customer suite, where we grew up in the higher education and the life sciences space, over the last number of years, we have expanded to become a much more horizontal offering, and we see that in the customers that take advantage of our technology. If you look at our covering of our suite, and if you look at the source-to-settle process, we really look at that as a continuum, as something that essentially builds on itself. It's a circular process. But it starts and ends with spend analysis. If you look at what you need to do in order to be successful in procurement and really have an excellent ability to save money and to drive cost savings for your entire organization. You really need to start with understanding where your spend sits. That drives your supplier acquisition and supplier management processes. It drives your sourcing and contract processes as a next step. That will drive what you actually put in your e-procurement technology and in your marketplace, which will then in turn drive inventory and your accounts payable processes. You see now that with the acquisition of SpendRadar, we've acquired and combined a modular suite that really covers all those aspects of the source to settle continuum. So this is really a suite now of products, and as we work towards integrating the Upside and the SpendRadar technology into our suite, this will become a fully integrated technology offering. So if you look at SpendRadar and spend analysis, and I started talking a little bit about that spend analysis really is the start and end point of our procurement process. Our suite really did have a hole in the ability to cover all the spend in the organization. We had a great sourcing solution which covers all the sourcing events that you want to do. We have a fantastic procurement and accounts payable solution that will cover all the transactional pieces. But if you really want to gain insight in spend across the organization, if you have an environment that you want to combine your accounts payable spend with the details of the line items that you have in the procurement solution and also add P-card extracts to that, or if you have an environment where you have multiple ERP or multiple organizations that you want to combine your spend together and compare and contrast, you really need to have something that goes beyond just the e-procurement solution, because not all your spend is in the procurement solution. So in order to satisfy the need to get very, very good detailed insight in your spend, we knew as a business that it made sense to add a world-class spend analysis tool to our suite. So we really believe that with SpendRadar, this is an organization that is next generation. It's a young organization, but from the people that are there, it's a very strong organization in skills and knowledge. The founders have had a tremendous amount of experience in building their own business in spend analysis and being part of organizations that have done this for a long time, and they've taken all that knowledge and really poured that into SpendRadar. And I believe that that's a big driver behind the relatively fast growth that SpendRadar has been able to achieve in the short lifetime that they've been there. So we're extremely excited at SciQuest to work with SpendRadar, to be able to make them part of the team, and to offer not just SciQuest customers but also SpendRadar customers now access to a very much expanded suite of solutions that we believe work really, really well together already. So with that, I'm going to give the microphone to Cindy, and Cindy, go ahead and introduce SpendRadar to our audience, please.
Hi, thank you, Eric. So before we get started, I thought I would just give you a little bit of insight into who SpendRadar is and some of our credentials. We were founded in 2009, and we spent most of that year building our next generation spend management platform. And although we have only been SpendRadar and now SciQuest for a relatively short period of time, as Eric mentioned, the people who comprise our organization come from the industry and have been in the industry pretty much since its inception in the early to mid-90s. So, we've worked at just about every consulting and technology firm that offers spend analysis, and it was based on that experience that we wanted to create a next generation tool that really just made spend analysis simpler, more accurate, and as a result, more valuable for our customers. We think we were able to accomplish that in the fact that in the last roughly 24 months, we've been able to acquire over 150 global customers, and we are the go-to-market spend analysis platform that 3 of the world's largest consulting firms, Deloitte, Capgemini, and PwC, use to deliver spend analysis to their customers. We span pretty much any market sector, so it doesn't matter, every company out there, every organization out there, as you can imagine, spends, and they have an opportunity to try and manage and reduce those costs. We have, in our relatively short period of time, processed quite a bit of spend and quite a bit of transactions. You can see there in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. An interesting little trivia fact is if that $2.2 trillion was our GDP, we would be the 10th largest country in the world. So we have definitely processed quite a lot of spend in the last couple of years. This is a sampling of some of the companies that have used SpendRadar for spend analysis. And this is obviously not all the customers that we've worked with, but as you can see, we do span quite a few different industries. And what we really wanted to do when we built our next generation platform was focus on two areas. Improving the accessibility of data for the users, and then improving the technology and eliminating the traditional challenges as it relates to the technology. So if we talk a little bit about the users, what we sought to do was really support each user within the organization and their specific needs. As you can imagine, in this economy, C-levels and CPOs are very concerned with trying to manage and reduce costs so that they can impact their bottom line and improve margins. Their biggest challenge is that when they're sitting down with their investors and with their C-level peers, they want to be able to show the cost reductions that they've delivered and be able to have those be indisputable. That's also the same type of a challenge that you'll see with the director level. They and their team are given cost reduction goals, and they need to know that when they report those cost reductions up through their organization, that those are indisputable as well. And then the category managers, we wanted to make sure that they had direct access to the information that they needed to be able to understand, where can I reduce costs? If I've been given a cost reduction goal, how am I going to meet that? Are we compliant with the contracts that we have in place? Is there spend or suppliers that we could leverage to get better pricing? And so we really tried to create an environment that ensured that each of these users had access to the information they need. But in order to do that, we needed to take a look at the technology side of the equation. And when it comes to the technology side of the equation, we took a look at spend analysis and broke it into three high-level areas. There's the data piece of the equation, the cleansing and classifying, and then the reporting and analysis. From a data perspective, what we wanted to do was move away from the concept of customers have to provide us their data in templates, and that we dictate not only the data that they need to give us, but the format that it needs to be submitted in. That usually took several months to over a year to try and get global data that could be in lots of different systems and in lots of different formats and languages and currencies. To have to normalize and filter that and put it into a template could take a very long time for companies that were trying to deliver spend analysis. And we've eliminated that. We can accept data in any format that it currently resides. You don't have to normalize or filter it. You can provide it as is in the format that you need to provide it to us in, and we will normalize and aggregate that data for you. What that means for you is that we've been able to take a process that on the low end was 3 to 6 months and on the high end could be in excess of 12, 18 months, and we've taken it and shrunk it down to, on average, about 1 to 2 days. So we can accept any data, not just traditional historic spend, and we have eliminated that burden of IT support and normalizing data off of our customers. And then the second piece in cleansing and classifying, this is probably one of the most critical failure points or potential failure points in spend analysis. And what we wanted to do here was ensure the highest level of accuracy for our customers. Because if the data isn't accurate, then the end users don't trust it and they don't use it. And the executive team and the directors who have to report those figures up will be called on a fact or a statement that they make that may not be accurate. So again, we need to make sure that the data is accurate so that it's indisputable. And the biggest challenge we saw here is that today there are two ways that spend analysis vendors process data. They either use manual offshore resources, which can be inherently riddled with inaccuracy issues because you've got a lot of turnover in these organizations and there's no process or tool to ensure consistency and speed moving forward. So for example, if you send your data to a team of offshore team of resources to process and they see a transaction description of Polaris, they may classify that as a snowmobile, they may classify that as a heart implant device, which it is in the medical industry, or they may classify that as a pool cleaner, which it is in the chemical industry. And if you ask them to correct it, it can only be corrected moving forward, which results in some of your data still being misclassified. And again, end users don't trust that, and you only aggravate the problem with the amount of turnover there is as you continue to do data refreshes. The other approach is a black box of pre-built rules and algorithms and artificial intelligence. The biggest challenge we saw there is that the vendors who have built this auto classification engine that is one-size-fits-all are trying to apply that to every single organization and customer that they have. And the reality is you can't build a one-size-fits-all auto classification engine that's going to highly accurately classify every company in the world their spend. What ends up happening is they choose the highest common denominator across their customer base, and if that means that Polaris is a snowmobile for most of their customers, then that's how they're going to build their auto classification engine to behave. So whether it's a rule or an algorithm or artificial intelligence, it will read a word and classify it to snowmobile. And that becomes a problem if Polaris is a heart implant device for your business or even a pool cleaner. And so what ends up happening with these tools is where the tool misclassified spend, they take that misclassified spend data, spit it out, and process it manually offshore. So it's not completely automated, and you have the same issues with manual processing in addition to the fact that you have this auto classification engine that you can't tailor to support accurately classifying your spend. So what we wanted to do here is we did want to have an automated approach, which we do. We have a tool, which is our Spend Radar Data Manager, and through the Spend Radar Data Manager, we're able to tailor our rules and algorithms and artificial intelligence such that each customer's data is what drives it, their business drives it, and we're able to ensure a much higher level of accuracy. And then lastly, from a business intelligence or reporting and analysis environment, what we wanted to do in that area was remove the traditional challenges with business intelligence tools. They're not what you would call super user-friendly. You don't just walk up and start using a BI tool. They typically take a lot of time and a lot of training to master. You have to be somewhat technical but also somewhat business savvy, because when the category managers who need this information come to you and ask for a report, you have to marry their business needs with how the data behaves in a data warehouse environment and be able to pull that data together in a BI report. What we wanted to do, though, that created a bottleneck, and it meant that most organizations had a handful of senior analysts who were trained on these BI tools, and then everybody else who needed the information was relegated to working with Excel spreadsheets. We wanted to remove that bottleneck of having to go through senior analysts to get your data and create an environment that was extremely user-friendly, that operated a lot like PowerPoint, Excel, and Google, which were tools that almost every business user has used, so that our end users could walk up and start using the tool with little or no training, but if they invested about 60 minutes of training, they could become a super user and create their own reports, analysis, views, tabs, and dashboards without the need for support from IT or SciQuest. So that's what we set out to do as far as supporting from a technology perspective as well as an end user perspective in our next generation spend analysis tool. What that means for our customers is where spend analysis is traditionally just about identifying opportunities. So if you think about how traditional spend analysis tools work, they ask you for some general information on your suppliers and your historic spend. So POs, what have I committed to from a spend perspective? AP, what have I already spent? A lot of that is looking backwards and just finding ways that you can identify cost reduction opportunities. But spend management isn't just about identifying opportunities. In order to actually manage and reduce costs, you have to track compliance. And to track compliance, you need to understand what are my contract terms, what are my cost reduction goals, maybe what is my budget, and I might need to pull in some general ledger information to understand how that affects my business. I also need to understand, against my cost reduction goals, how am I measuring year to date, quarter over quarter? Do I have cost reduction goals by product line, by campus? So being able to look holistically at all of the different pieces of information that allow us to manage and reduce costs, that is what is basic spend management for SciQuest. Because we're able to pull in all of this information very quickly and easily in a format that's easy to consume by end users, we're able to bring end-to-end spend management to our customers. And then we're also able to take it to a next level, and because we can pull in any information, such as market indexes, to understand how is my spending behavior aligning with market trends, or we can pull in excess inventory or forecast information to understand and help reduce excess inventory levels and improve profit margins on a particular product line. So all of these are basic core capabilities of the SpendRadar and SciQuest module. And we deliver our tool through two primary modules, the SpendRadar Data Manager and the SpendRadar Reporting and Analysis tool. The Data Manager is where all of the data is aggregated, it's mapped, we do supplier normalization, we do cleansing and classifying of the customer spend, and then once all of that data has been processed in the Data Manager, it is published into the Reporting and Analysis tool where end users can easily access that information. For the purposes of today's demo, we're going to be walking through the Reporting and Analysis module. If you have an interest in the Data Manager and how it works, we would be happy to schedule a follow-on discussion with you and a demo of that module. Please just feel free to reach out to your SciQuest sales rep or your SpendRadar sales rep. So with that, we'll just wrap up quickly with the strategy of integration. So what you can expect from SciQuest and SpendRadar in the next 3 to 6 months is by early 2013, we plan on having standard data adapters such that data from each of the other SciQuest modules will be easily pulled into the SpendRadar reporting and analysis environment through the Data Manager so that our customers can actually access all of the information that they need to not only manage and reduce their costs, but also to understand performance around, how are my resources performing? How many events are we performing per year? Are we compliant? So that is really where we plan on being in the next 3 to 6 months. So with that, I'm going to move into the demo. And what you're looking at here is the standard entry point. It's a general look and feel of the SpendRadar module reporting and analysis environment. As I mentioned before, we tried to make the user interface as easy to use as possible so that with no training, I probably could walk up and use the tool. But again, with about an hour's worth of training, I can create my own tabs, my own dashboard, my own look and feel. It works a lot like PowerPoint in that it's very graphic. So if I can't tell this blue from this blue, all I have to do is hover over the color and a box pops up and tells me that's my facilities category. If I want to actually filter in on that category, which equates to roughly 36 million in spend, I click and now I'm looking at all my facilities spend. Maybe I only manage spend in France, so I can come down here and click the red color, which is France, and now I'm looking at all of my facility spend in France. I can quickly see that my facility spend in France is primarily with 3 suppliers. So if I want to start understanding what I'm buying from these suppliers, I can drag and drop. And now I've focused on my facility spend in France with my top 3 suppliers. I could continue to drill down, but if I want to get to the details of what I'm spending, I can also come over to the Category Analysis tab. Each of the tabs in this environment are configurable, so one customer's environment may not look exactly like another's. For the purposes of this demo, this is a general look and feel that we can offer. The Category Analysis tab is the Details page. So I can see that facilities category that I've selected on, the top 3 suppliers, and I also have a wealth of other detailed information available to me on the Category Analysis tab. This report down here, the transaction details, just happens to have a lot of general information that I might be interested in. So as I go across, I can see there's unit price, order quantity, parent name, payment terms, all the way down to what level of UNSPSC have I classified this to. If I decide that I don't need UNSPSC as an end user, I just don't really care about having UNSPSC classification levels in my report, I can quickly right-click, select Properties, and change the properties of this report. Now this panel is what we would train users on in that 60 minutes. What you're looking at right now is just a list of all the fields of data that were pulled into the system. And this box contains all the fields of data that were pulled into this report. If I go down a little, I can see the UNSPSC classifications. If I don't care to have those in this report, I can highlight those, say remove, hit OK, And now I no longer have UNSPSC in this report. So on the right, you can see these additional green boxes. These are additional reports and views. And for each of our customers, as part of a core deployment, we create custom-tailored reports, analysis, and views to ensure that we have all the reports that you currently use to manage your business available. So again, don't feel like you're relegated only to the reports and views that you see here. This is just a sample representation. But let's say I want to go back to understanding what I'm buying from these suppliers. I can open up this line items report, and now I can see based on those 3 suppliers, these are the things that I've purchased. Maybe I want to see what my payment terms are with these suppliers. I can close this report by minimizing and come and open the payment terms. And I can quickly see that most of the payments are net 30, but there is a payment that is due upon receipt. I might want to see about increasing the payment terms there so that I can improve my working capital. So if I click on due upon receipt, I now can see that PG&E is the only supplier that is due upon receipt. It may be that I'm buying my electricity, and so yeah, I don't believe I can negotiate payment terms on my utilities. So I will stop going through that analysis and maybe look for another opportunity to manage and reduce costs. I can come back to my dashboard, and I can clear the selections I've made by hitting the clear button. Because this is a browser-based solution, I can also back or forward depending on where I've navigated. The application works much like an Excel spreadsheet in that you can think of each of these cells as a cell in an Excel spreadsheet, and the data and how you interact with it as Excel. Each of these can be sized much like a cell in an Excel spreadsheet. And if I want to look at January spend only, I can click on January, and you can't see this, but I'm holding the shift button down. If I want to look at my spend from January through April, if I click on April, now because I held the shift button down, it's showing me January through April. In a similar way, if I hold the control button down, I can multi-select or multi-deselect. And once I'm done with that analysis, I can hit the clear button and I'm back to my core spend. I also have the ability to lock on any particular data set. So maybe I want to lock on a particular year or a particular category. If I want to do that, all I have to do is click on that segment of spend or data that I want to lock on, hit the lock button, and now any of the selections that I make or filters that I apply are made as it relates to just that period of time. When I hit clear, I'm still locked on that period of time. But when I'm done with that period of time and I want to go back to my core data set, I can hit the unlock button and clear, and you can see that we've got our full data set back again. For any of these reports, I also have the ability to export into Excel. Export is some sort of a CSV file or copy to a clipboard if I want to send it, include it into a PowerPoint. I can print or save as a PDF. I can also clone a report or delete a report. If I want to change the look and feel, I can come in and choose from several different formats of look and feel for the reports. And then lastly, it works much like Google in that if I know a particular purchase order or a particular supplier that I'm looking for, rather than having to navigate and drill and filter within this data, I can simply go to the search box and start typing. And as I type, I get a look ahead, much like Google, that tells me what information is available. So I can quickly see that there are 13 part numbers that I buy from Dell, 5 Dell supplier entities that roll up to 1 Dell supplier parent, and 335 items that I've purchased. If I want to get to the detail and find a particular item, I can expand and look through all the items. Or I can just select Dell as the supplier parent and see all of my spend with Dell. As we move across the top, again, each of these tabs can be changed, and the information that we provide will be segmented in the way that supports your business best. I'll look at the Compliance tab now, and what we're showing is spend that's off contract, spend that's with high-risk suppliers, and spend that's with unapproved suppliers. if I want to get to the bottom of, well, who is buying with unapproved suppliers, because if you look across the three elements, this tends to be where I am making the biggest errors, I can come over here and see my spending with unapproved suppliers equates to roughly $59 million in spend. If I click on that, I now see that this is updated to 100% of my spend, but thankfully none of it is with high-risk suppliers. I can now go to the Category Analysis tab and start doing some investigating to understand where is this occurring. Maybe the first idea I have is that it's one of my business units or one of my divisions or campuses that happens to be spending all the time with unapproved suppliers. I can open up my divisions report, and I quickly see that, unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the problem. I've got rampant spending across all of my divisions with unapproved suppliers. Some divisions are a little bit more egregious than others, but yet it does seem to be happening across all my enterprise. Maybe it's a particular buyer or handful of buyers. So I can come down and open up the buyer report, and I can see that that does appear to be more of the problem. And I have about a dozen buyers who are buying from unapproved suppliers, and really, as I start looking at the data, there's only a handful that are making the largest purchases with unapproved suppliers. So if I want to focus in on the spend that these buyers are buying with unapproved suppliers, like an Excel spreadsheet, I can highlight those buyers, and now I can see this is the spend of the $59 million that I have with unapproved suppliers. $57 million is with these 5 buyers. Now again, I could bookmark this and share it with these buyers. I could export to Excel or copy it to a clipboard. But maybe I want to do a little bit more investigating to understand why are they buying or what are they buying. Perhaps they're getting good payment terms. So again, I can come and open up my payment terms. Because all of the selections I've made have been carried through, I can see these are the payment terms that these buyers are paying for these particular suppliers, and they don't look very favorable. Net 30 is not too bad, although we might prefer net 60, but there are some that are due upon receipt, and some that are due net 7. If I want to select the net 7, I can click on that and see there's really only 3 buyers who have agreed to pay net 7, and it actually relates to only 1 vendor. So the first thing I may want to do is have these buyers contact this vendor and renegotiate payment terms. Again, when I'm done with that analysis, I can close the report, come back to my dashboard, clear out any selections I've made, and I'm back to my core data set. From an opportunity assessment perspective, we tried to create some general reports in the demo that show some of the low-hanging fruit that companies focus on. For example, amount of spend by number of suppliers. One of the easiest ways to reduce costs is to consolidate suppliers and aggregate spend. Now, of course, again, I can't tell that color teal from that color teal over here, so all I have to do is arrow over a box, and a box pops, or a bubble, and a box pops up and shows me that that is my professional services category, and I have 79 suppliers in that category with spend that equals about $26 million. If I want to further investigate the potential, I can come over to my category analysis and see what exactly am I buying, and perhaps I can aggregate the spend in my training services. I have several suppliers here, and I might be able to consolidate that down to 3 or 4. And then lastly, as I make selections throughout the application, oftentimes what we find is that end users get to a point and realize, wow, I shouldn't have made that filter on suppliers. Now, I do have the choice of backing up and then reapplying the filters I wanted, or I can also come to this Selections tab and quickly see a breadcrumb of all the selections that I've made. And if I want to remove that supplier parent filter, all I have to do is hit the eraser button, and now I can come back and see that that filter has been removed. I have the ability as well to toggle between currencies and to toggle between sourcing category structures. In this particular demo, we've got 3 currencies, so I can see that my spend that is $169 million in US dollars shrinks down to be 112 million pounds. And maybe I use UNSPSC in some of my organizations, but I use a different category structure in others. We have the ability to support multiple taxonomies simultaneously, such that I can view the same data in other taxonomies. That's all for today's demo. I think we'll be opening it up for questions now.
Thank you, Cindy and Eric. We have now reached the Q&A portion of the webinar. We would like to ask you to use the question panel on your screen to ask questions at this time. We encourage you to type your questions, as we'll be sure to provide a response even if we can't address them during the live session today. Just getting them all pulled up here.
All right, so Cindy, the first question that comes up is, can you talk a little bit more about data uploads? Is the data static once imported, and what if spend data changes later, in general, PO revisions and cancellations? How do you deal with that?
That's a great question. So contrary to traditional approaches where a vendor will say they've pre-built a data warehouse, and by nature of pre-building a data warehouse, they provide their customers with a template and say, here's the data you need to provide us, the data types, and this is the format you need to provide it to us in. SpendRadar takes a different approach in that we don't force our customers to give us data in any template. We also don't force them to give us certain elements of data. But in addition to that, after the initial time that we upload data, what happens in the data manager is we receive data from a customer and we create a template in the data manager environment for that data extract. If that data extract changes in the future, the system can support that. Ideally, we would know in advance so that we can allocate time to remap the new data extract. However, even if you don't know that that data extract has changed or was going to change and you just happen to send it to us, the system will flag an error saying this is not the same format, and then we can notify you and let you know that we're going to change the environment to support the new data extract. Was that the question? Did that answer the question that you had? I'm not sure, making sure that I understood that correctly.
All right, so I think we'll wait for the person that asked this to see if that comes through. So let's start with a follow-up question first. This is sort of a bigger question for SpendRadar customers. What are your plans to serve your existing customers of SpendRadar today? And I'll take a first cut at answering that, and Cindy, if you want to add anything, that'd be great. So we will continue to serve SpendRadar customers in the way we've done, and actually the intent is that we essentially operate that part of the business the way we've been operating before. So we look at that as an opportunity for us to continue to provide great support. We believe that there's a lot of growth in the market for similar type of customers as well. And what we hope to do is for SpendRadar customers today is to also have a conversation about SciQuest. But the bottom line is that we are here to make sure that our customers get the best technology and the best support, and that includes now SpendRadar customers as well. Cindy, I don't know if you have anything to add to that as well.
Sure. I know one of the concerns that could arise is, are we going to force new technology down our existing customers' throat, or will we change and will we still be able to guide the future of the SpendRadar module? And I can tell you, rest assured, that this solution will still be offered as a standalone solution. So if you do want some of the other SciQuest modules, great, but you do not have to buy those modules in order to continue using the SpendRadar module. And if for new customers, if that's all you want is spend analysis, then you can buy it as a standalone module. There's no requirement to buy any of the other modules. The other thing, and one of the strongest reasons that we're so thrilled about this partnership, is that SciQuest is a firm believer in if it's not broke, don't fix it. And they wanted our solution. They wanted us to continue to grow it. They believed in our vision, and so they acquired us with the concept that we will continue to grow the solution. It will still be a best-of-breed module as part of the SciQuest solution, but the entire organization is going to maintain on board and continue building to the future against the roadmap that we've defined. So I just want to make sure that while you do now have the ability to select from a platform of modules, which had been a hindrance to us in the past because many of our customers did want other modules as part of a platform, and we did not offer those. You don't have to buy those modules in order to continue working with SpendRadar.
Thank you. So the next question, how long would it typically take to configure and implement a SpendRadar customer?
Oh, that's a great question. So if you look at, and I'm disappointed that I didn't share that as part of the presentation, so thank you for asking that question. If you look across the over 150 projects that we've delivered to date, one of the biggest benefits is that traditionally spend analysis takes 3 or 6 months to get live for that initial cleansing and classification. For us, through the use of our proprietary data manager tool, we're able to get most of our customers up and running in about 4 weeks. So across those 150 customers, if you average out the time it took us, it's about 4 weeks. Our largest customer, who manages over $100 billion in spend annually, took 8 weeks, and of that 8 weeks, it was an elapsed 6 weeks of SpendRadar effort, and that was just because they're a large holding company and they had about 30 businesses to pull data from, so it took a little bit more time to pull the data.
All right, so let me see. So there's a couple questions here around the flexibility of the reporting. So can you confirm that this is configurable? Can we create additional widgets mapped to our data, which we model to our data sources?
Absolutely. So the only limitation of the reporting and analysis tool is the data that you can provide. And that data can be from inside your 4 walls or outside your 4 walls. We're able to pull in information from that are government regulations and tie that into your spend, and end users. So you don't have to rely on SciQuest or on IT to create tailored reports and views and analysis. End users can be trained in about an hour to completely change this entire reporting and analysis environment. Everything from changing and adding a new tab, or changing and adding a new report, or completely changing the layout of a particular tab.
Excellent. So let me see. There is a question here about the way that the normalization works. So we have several same vendor names like Office Max with space, Office Max-Atlanta. Does this product provide the ability to normalize that?
Absolutely. So as part of our core deployment, the second step in the process that we follow after loading and aggregating and mapping the data is supplier normalization. The tool has inherent capabilities to find anything that's been spelled similarly or is located at the same address, or even acquisitions. So we will find Kinko's and roll that up to Federal Express. That is an inherent part of what the tool's capabilities are, and also a part of the process when we deliver spend analysis to our customers. And that's at no additional charge. It's just part of the cleansing and classification exercise.
Excellent. So there's a follow-up question on the integration story between SciQuest and SpendRadar. So are there plans to incorporate the data from the SciQuest modules to Data Manager? And can we also report on custom fields was one question. So I'll take that. So yes, there are certainly plans to automatically or auto-magically, or at least with standard adapters, to bring the data from the SciQuest platform in the SpendRadar technology. And in the extracts for purchase orders and purchase requests, we do intend that that would include custom fields. We are working on the details of how that integration works, whether that's an automatic or whether that's a click of the button, depending on how often and how fast you need it. So we're working through that right now. Remember, this is a very fresh announcements also for sort of the internal technology folks, but that's the intent in the next 3 to 6 months to have that worked out. If you look then at the benefits for existing SciQuest and SpendRadar customers, is that we really do believe that 1 and 1 makes 3 in this case. The access for existing SciQuest customers to really a world-class spend analysis solution will also, sort of feed through the ability to include non-SciQuest spend to get real insight in your spend analysis, and that will be beneficial for creating your best sourcing strategy, for really measuring your compliance, for really understanding what people in your organization spend on whom. So we believe that that's a fantastic opportunity to really enhance the existing platform. and to provide more value as a procurement organization to your overall organization. I think for SpendRadar customers, the same story can be told the other way around as well. If you're looking for a larger platform, and if you're looking for more capabilities in any area in the source to settle process, working together with SciQuest, with the standard integration that we're looking to build, will be a real opportunity to help enhance your procurement capabilities. So there's a question here. How often do companies refresh the data, and how long does it take in number of workdays?
So traditionally, I think because of the length of time it took to turn around a data refresh, many customers have been trained to believe that quarterly is as quickly as they can get data refreshes, or as frequently as they can. Most of our customers will start on either monthly or quarterly, and some will actually increase that frequency and have gone down to semi-monthly, weekly, semi-weekly, and even nightly in some cases. On average, a data refresh is turned around in about 24 hours. Over 90% of our customers get their data refreshes in about 24 hours. We do ask for 1 or 2 extra days on top of that in case we do see some new transactions or suppliers and we need to add some tailored rules and algorithms to your environment to ensure that those are auto-classified moving forward. But we don't hold it for the extra 2 or 3, or extra 1 or 2 days. If we get done and we've built those additional rules and your data is ready, we'll go ahead and publish it back to you. And like I said, most get it in about 24 hours.
Okay, thank you. I have a question here that is about connecting to ERP. So does this offer a connection to PeopleSoft? And can we also include financial reports with fiscal year and budget periods?
So you can absolutely include financial information, and we can represent fiscal periods and budget periods, et cetera, and budgetary information. We don't. The beauty of the SpendRadar module is that you don't need an ETL tool or tight integration. Because we can accept data in any format that it currently resides, you just need to provide us an extract of that data regardless of the system it comes from, and we can incorporate it and map it in our tool. So yes, it can. We have pulled in many, many instances from PeopleSoft, as well as for many instances of PeopleSoft.
Okay. All right. Does the solution come with a standard set of pre-configured widgets or reports?
We do have several templates that are more look and feel, and you're not relegated to that look and feel. But the way we typically deliver is that we sit down and we use as a starting point those templates. We look at your data and we understand, based on the data that you provided us, what reports can we generate. Because if you've included data that our other customers don't, there will be additional reports that we can provide you. But we'll usually use those as a way to determine what should your final environment look like. For those customers who are brand new and just want to use one of those templates, then we'll let you influence which template you want to use, or maybe a hybrid of a combination of templates.
All right, fantastic. I have a question here about price comparisons, and I'll take that one. Is there a way to see price comparisons across different SciQuest users? Technology-wise, if there are multiple SciQuest customers that want to share their data and do price comparisons, that's probably not an issue. The concern comes in with what data is SciQuest allowed to share. So we have regularly, also in the past, entertained questions like, can I show what customer A has paid to Office Max for these kinds of widgets with customer B, so that we can do price benchmarking? And we are bound by confidentiality clauses with our suppliers, but also with our customers, that we are not able to share that kind of data in detail. However, we have certainly seen that some of our customers and some of our shared customers are now looking at creating a SpendRadar solution where they do multiple institutions together, and that data is available to the institution, and they have opted to make that kind of comparison part of their reporting environment. So we're certainly looking at what our opportunities are, because in the end, SciQuest sits on a wealth of data, and there's lots of benchmarking opportunities that may not have to do with price, but are dealing with, for example, cycle times or compliance metrics, where we can certainly look at what's best in class versus what you're doing today. That is really valuable information that we think are real opportunities.
Eric, I would just add to that.
Yeah,
I pulled up a report that shows if you're worried about price comparison internally, are we compliant with our negotiated rate? We do have the ability to, show price variance across multiple commodities.
Yeah, and it's between customers that the concern on the confidentiality sits, but that's where some of the discussion sits. So here's a question around: is this a hosted or an installed solution, Cindy?
So this is a web-based SaaS solution. So any end user would need is a web browser to access the tool. It is not available behind your firewall, and that's so that you don't have to worry about IT resources and integrating and upgrades. That's all managed for you as part of the core fee.
Okay. Then another question, which is interesting. So is there item master cleansing available, for like supplier normalization, not just spend, but can you normalize the supplier master or the item master itself?
So we do have the ability to normalize an item master. Clearly, as part of the standard deployment, we can normalize your supply base and your supplier master. Item master, we would want to understand what the end goal is. But there is some ability for us to do that.
Okay.
If that's something that's of interest, then please feel free to reach out to your SciQuest or SpendRadar rep, and we can talk a little bit about what it would require to do that and what the objectives are.
All right, fantastic. There's a lot of questions that have come in, so I don't think we're going to be able to answer all of them. I'm going to pick off 2 more, and then we're going to have to close it down. But we will look at all the questions that have come in, and we will provide you with answers. As we have not answered all of them. So one question here is there an ability to do a web drop-off for an extract to any user by user ID and password? So kind of an FTP server so admin can start work immediately for file dump replication. We have several agencies providing their data via email. So I think what they're talking about and what the question is if we have data that needs to be part of the solution, can they just drop it off on an FTP site and we pick it up in the SpendRadar solution? What's the flow?
Absolutely. So, and we set up a secure FTP for each individual customer to submit data or post data to. I think if it's coming from multiple sources, and that could be potentially internal and external sources, then as long as you give permission to that person to post it, they can. And that process can even be automated. We have the ability to if you automatically post it, let's say on a nightly basis, we can automatically uplift it and process it. So there is a lot of automation that can be had as well in that process.
Okay, fantastic. All right, the last question. What is the pricing model? So I'll take that. And the price model for SpendRadar is a 3-part price model. It is an annual subscription-based, and we do it based on number of users, which is a little bit different from what we've done with other SciQuest modules where we have an unlimited user model. So it's based on the number of users, and so more users is a little bit more expensive, less users is a little bit cheaper. Then there is an implementation or sort of an install fee, which is pretty typical for any kind of software where you have a one-time implementation fee. And then finally, you have a refresh fee, which is a monthly fee, but we charge that on an annual basis. Or it is a periodic fee depending on how often you want to refresh. The biggest driver behind the implementation and the refresh fees sits in how much data needs to be processed, and then you have all kinds of complexities that may add or reduce the price a little bit. So for example, if you have multiple languages, if you have multiple sources, if you have multiple currencies. So those are kind of the key elements that help us drive to a price that requires statement of work. So it can be relatively cheap, but it can also be relatively expensive depending on how much data you have, but we'll be more than happy to help you through that process. I'm going to take one last one, and then we're going to stop it. Let's see. Let's see. This is a question that says, with the acquisition of SpendRadar, will the data security continue to remain, or will you need a new contract with SciQuest? Which I think is a little bit of a sort of a question that, so at this point in time, you will not need a new contract with SciQuest if you're an existing SpendRadar customer. But what will happen is that the organization of SpendRadar will be part of SciQuest, so the company name will change. The product will remain SpendRadar. This will not have any changes or impact on your installation from a security perspective. So nothing will change in your existing SpendRadar installation as you're using it today. But we will certainly get in touch with you from a contractual perspective around the naming of the company in the contract and locations around payment, etc. That will take a little bit of time, but you'll receive confirmation from that around the finance side from our finance group. And you can also ask and talk with your sales rep around any potential changes there. If that's a concern, please reach out to us, and we'll work that through with you.
And Eric,
all right, with that, yeah, go ahead, Cindy.
I was just going to say what I think we're planning on doing is trying to schedule those around renewals so that we don't, we provide as little disruption as possible.
Right. And I think that's in general the gist of it. We want to make sure that we have little impact and really continue to focus on making sure we deliver the best product possible. So I think that's the end of our webinar.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate everyone's interest and participation in today's webinar. Again, we will be sure to follow up with those individuals that we were not able to get to your questions. Upon the conclusion of today's webinar, please take a moment to complete our short survey. And if you haven't heard, registration for Next Level 2013, our annual conference, is now open, and early bird pricing ends October 15th. To learn more about Next Level, visit nextlevel.sciquest.com. For more information on other upcoming webinars and events, please visit our corporate website at sciquest.com. Again, thank you for your attendance today, and we look forward to your participation in future events. This concludes today's webinar.